Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to take a massive stack of sources, articles, interviews, deep psychological profiles, and really just deliver the essential knowledge you need.
And hopefully we'll find those surprising insights that, stick with you long after you're done listening.
So today, we are immersing ourselves in the paradoxical and, often unbelievable life of the artist David Choe.
If you know that name, it's probably because of what might be the biggest financial gamble in tech history.
Right, the Facebook story. Painting the original offices back in 2007, and famously taking company equity instead of the $60,000 in cash he was offered.
That decision made him, well, obscenely wealthy, a quiet millionaire before he even turned 30.
But that's the thing, right? As our sources show, the money is it's like a footnote in this much bigger, much more fascinating story.
Exactly. Our mission today is to deep dive into the material that pulls back the curtain on how Choe managed to channel these radical cycles of, well, everything. Shame, success, failure, addiction, abuse.
And turn it all into this just unstoppable, radical creativity.
What becomes clear almost immediately is that he lives in a constant state of internal war. He even talks about this duality himself.
Yeah, he was raised hearing he was destined for greatness, named after King David.
But at the same time, he felt like a total disgrace.
And the sources we looked at, they really pick up on this. They basically call him an anomaly.
Right, they label him an N of 1.
Which, for anyone not familiar, is a statistical term.
It just means a sample size of 1. I mean, there's no one else like him. And his story, because he's so brutally honest about overcoming this profound shame and abuse, it really forces you to look at your own internal boundaries.
And maybe, just maybe, redefine what you think is even possible when it comes to transformation.
To really get the intensity of that, we have to start where Choe himself starts, with his self-diagnosis.
He calls himself a severe gambling addict. But he applies that label so broadly, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, for him, every single addiction is gambling addiction. If you drink and drive, you're gambling. If you overeat, you're gambling with your health. It's all a gamble.
And what's he gambling against? Stillness.
No.
He says the core problem is, I hate myself, so I'm just running.
Running from what, though?
Running from having to just sit quietly with himself.
Right. And that constant, compulsive need for movement, it becomes the theme of his entire life. Graffiti, running from the police, hopping trains, playing drums in a band.
Throwing himself into war zones for vice, working nonstop. The movement is the whole point. It's the mechanism to avoid that self-loathing.
So if the running is the symptom, we have to unpack the root.
Which the sources paint as a childhood that was just defined by these highly contradictory and often violent influences.
Exactly. A really unstable family environment, chaotic abandonment, severe physical and emotional abuse. I mean, it was a turbulent, destructive atmosphere.
And yet, in all that chaos, he gets this incredible, almost dangerous gift from his mother.
She was a hardcore, born-again Christian, and she gave him what he calls blind faith.
She essentially brainwashed him. And I mean that in the most positive way possible, to believe with absolute certainty that he was the one.
The greatest artist to ever live. It was just this unquestioning conviction, totally separate from his actual talent or reality at the time.
And he saw her live this out, right?
Yeah.
He watched his mother become this radical shapeshifter.
Yeah, changing her appearance, sometimes using fake cubic zirconium jewelry just to secure business deals. She taught him implicitly that reality doesn't apply.
If you believe it fiercely enough, you can just bend the world to your will.
But then you get the complete opposite message delivered by his father,
who saw his art, his graffiti, his whole calling as a disgrace to our immigrant race. And that often led to physical abuse.
Can you imagine the internal wiring? You're getting, you are King David destined for greatness, and you are a profound shame to this family at the exact same time.
The psychological fallout was, this is exactly what you'd expect.
He calls himself a neurotic mess, dealing with a whole host of severe mental health issues. Clinically depressed, bipolar, OCD, antisocial traits, and what we call process addictions.
Let's stick with that for a second. When we talk about process addictions, like workaholism or gambling, we're talking about a compulsion tied to a behavior, not a substance.
Precisely. And in Choe's case, the process was chasing a high, but the high wasn't winning.
That's the key. That is the mechanism of shame chasing.
He says it outright. Losing $10 million feels even better than winning.
Yeah.
That quote is just, it's stunning.
Why? Because the shame, the anger that comes with losing, that feeling of utter failure, That's the drug he needs.
It's a reenactment of those painful but really familiar patterns he learned as a kid.
It's the ultimate self-sabotage, but it gives him a weird kind of control over his own destruction. It's a
Right.
comfort zone in a terrifying way.
And that extreme stress, it manifested physically. He talks about suffering from severe IBS, going from, 7 bowel movements a day when he was in his active addiction.
To just one a day once he got into recovery. The body just doesn't lie about the stress it's under.
So his turn to art then was really an act of defiance.
It was a solitary sport, a place where he didn't have to feel small or stupid, which is how he felt in school. But the thing that really hardened him, that prepared him for a life in the public eye, that came from this incredibly vulnerable moment.
The journal.
Yes, his private journal. He poured everything into it, all his young, artistic feelings. And his brothers found it.
And they read it out loud, mocking him.
He describes that as feeling more naked than being in a room full of naked guys showering. It was a complete violation that taught him to build this impenetrable shield against criticism.
So the trauma taught him that if you just reveal the worst, most shameful parts of yourself first.
Then the rest of the world can't hurt you as badly.
Okay, so let's pivot to his actual path as an artist. What's so fascinating is his belief that his most creative periods, they didn't happen in some glamorous city.
No, not at all. He says they happened in the mundane. Places like San Jose, cold weather, no Wi-Fi. It's a total rejection of that romantic, New York artist narrative.
And his early attempts at mainstream success were just catastrophic public rejections.
Right. He was trying to break into comics, worked on the X-Men book for Marvel. It didn't last long.
He was fired, and he found out from an internet message board, not even from his editor.
His reaction was pure self-sabotage. He sends this scathing, homophobic, racist email to literally everyone at Marvel.
A move that everyone saw as immediate career suicide. Then shortly after that, his editor at DC Comics quits while he's in the middle of a book. All the doors just slammed shut.
So he pivots.
Ah.
Hard. Straight into survival mode.
He realizes that pornographic magazines, he lists Hustler, Buttman, Asian Fever, they actually paid the same rate for illustrations as Rolling Stone.
But with none of the professional prestige to lose. He had nothing left, so why not? He became a self-described professional writer and pornographer.
And this is where the story gets just perfectly ironic. He starts writing these completely fabricated, ridiculous anal sex stories for $40 a pop.
Under the fake name, Susie Suzuki.
But then the art director at Buttman, of all places, catches him making it all up. He gets fired because, and I quote, "they only print the truth at Buttman."
I can't get over that. The ultimate rejection came from the one place that supposedly exists outside the rules of truth.
It's the perfect summary of his life, isn't it? He's a lightning rod for rejection, even where you'd think it was impossible.
And all of this brings us to 2007, the Facebook fluke.
Yes, and the context here is everything. He wasn't some famous artist when Sean Parker called him.
Not at all. He was stuck in what he calls purgatory in San Jose. He was broke and in complete disgrace and shame. He'd just gotten out of jail in Japan for assault.
But Parker, being a visionary, he wasn't looking for a corporate muralist. He was drawn to Choe's raw, I don't give a shot, vandal energy.
Parker's instructions were so simple and disruptive. Paint everything, including the microwave.
The goal was to make investors horrified. It was the spirit of nerdy punk rock taking over Silicon Valley, and Choe was the perfect agent for that chaos.
Now, Choe desperately needed $60,000 cash. He had gambling debts, other debts. He asked for the cash.
And Parker, recognizing the value of the art of the moment, he talked him into taking shares instead. Equity.
It was the ultimate gambler's move, wasn't it? Taking the massive long shot instead of the sure thing.
And that decision, born from this chaotic life, it was the ultimate validation of his mother's blind faith. He became a multimillionaire. The shares were eventually valued in the hundreds of millions.
But the money, that wasn't the deepest win for him.
No. The real moment of validation, it came in the form of personal revenge.
He tells Parker this story about how years earlier, he'd been screwed over and underpaid $2,000 by an executive at Warner Brothers, a guy named Chip.
For the Jay's Linkin Park album cover art?
And what happens next is it's like a movie. Parker was literally in negotiations for a multi-million-dollar ad deal with Warner Bros. The very next day.
And he canceled the entire deal. On the spot.
He looked him in the eye and said, "That guy Chip frecked with my friend Dave Choe, so we're not doing shoot with you guys."
Choe said he cried when he heard that. Yeah. After years of being rejected and insulted, he finally felt like the little guy wins.
It was a powerful antidote to all that shame, but only a temporary one.
Unfortunately, yeah. A big financial win doesn't solve deep psychological issues. The addiction engine was still running.
So it just jumps. It's like whack-a-mole. It jumps from gambling directly to workaholism.
And workaholism is the one addiction our society just celebrates. It congratulates you for it.
So he was doing everything at once. He's touring with his band, Mangy. He's running this super popular, super controversial podcast.
TVDA, which he admits he used for shame-chasing, just trying to push boundaries and record our downfall. At the same time, he's doing legitimate art shows and winning an Emmy with Vice News.
This relentless pace, it predictably leads to a physical breakdown. At 35, he has an angina attack.
He collapses from not sleeping, nonstop working, and gambling for an entire week straight.
The level of compulsion is it's horrifying. He wakes up in the hospital 30 hours later.
And immediately goes straight back to the casino to gamble.
Hey.
His brain just couldn't stop.
He had to use these extreme measures just to impose an external limit on himself. He hired friends.
And gave them physical permission to punch me in the face and drag me away from the table if he hit his gambling limit.
The self-loathing was so deep, he needed external force to save him from himself.
And that self-destructive energy is what brought him into the orbit of Anthony Bourdain.
Right. He saw Bourdain as this workaholic, ex-heroin addict brother who finally understood me. They had that same compulsive wiring.
Bourdain brought him right into his world. A book deal, plans for a CNN show based on Choe's art travels.
The show was all about authenticity. So for the pilot, Choe takes Bourdain to Sizzler,
The cheap buffet in Koreatown where he ate as a poor kid.
That episode became the most watched of the season. It even won an Emmy. But the pattern always holds. Success is followed by self-sabotage.
The episode was later pulled from streaming platforms because of Choe's other controversies.
And then came the final rejections. Bourdain's own production company refused to work with him further. They said the optics aren't good.
At the same time, Channing Tatum's agent canceled a writing deal, saying the actor would never be seen with a scumbag like you.
And Choe sees that external judgment, that rejection, for what it is. It's his fuel.
He says it himself. Anger and shame, it's a fucking powerful drug.
So if you look at the whole arc, the Marvel email, the Buttman firing, the physical collapse, the corporate shunning, the sources are clear.
He used all of it. The internal conflict, the external rejection, he used it as pure creative fuel.
His survival mechanism, that blind faith from his mother, it allowed him to be delusional enough to just keep going against all logic.
Whether it was with Warner Bros. Or Marvel or the porn industry. And for him, brilliance was never in the glamour. It was in the mundane. It required constant, fearless adaptation.
It's a life built on the idea that the thing you're most ashamed of is often the source of your greatest strength.
He has a name for it, conversationally: post-traumatic growth disorder. We all know about post-traumatic stress, but he suggests that sometimes the pain becomes the engine for radical growth.
So if he took all that foundational pain and shame and channeled it into becoming this massive success, it makes you wonder, what painful experiences in your life are you minimizing or ignoring or trying to outsmart with logic?
Which leaves you with the essential question: what narratives are you willing to reject, and what boundaries are you willing to push to finally stop being sick and tired of being sick and tired? You don't have to be logical to start, you just have to be willing to feel the pain.
And then, like Choe, believe fiercely that you are, in fact, the one.